Hey, this is Nate Marquardt, and you're tuning in to Combat Sports Coverage.
Hey, what's going on? It's Thomas Galdenzi with Combat Sports Coverage. And on this edition, I'll be interviewing longtime UFC veteran who even fought Anderson Silva for the UFC 185-pound championship and who was the welterweight Strikeforce champion of the world, Nate Marquardt. So, Nate, what brings you out to Houston, Texas?
Well, I'm actually on my way to Thailand with my family. We sold our house in Colorado end of April, and basically we were going to head out beginning of June, and the border closure was extended because of COVID. So looks like right now we're here till about end of August at least.
And how are you enjoying Houston so far? I see you're training at a couple gyms over here like Team Took and Main City Boxing. How are you liking them?
Yeah, I love it, man. It's been fun. I actually really enjoy Houston. I love the weather, and people have been nice, so it's been good experience.
And how has retired life from the Octagon been treating you so far?
It's been good. So I finished my seminary. I graduated in May, and I've been training. So I've been training the whole time. I'm still in good shape, good, healthy lifestyle, and everybody's happy in my family, so I'm happy.
And speaking of your UFC career, what was one of your most memorable moments inside the Octagon? Was it maybe your win over Tyron Woodley where you got a knockout in Strikeforce, or maybe was it going undefeated for a while until you earned your title shot against Anderson Silva? Or was it just maybe one of your spectacular finishes that you pulled inside the Octagon? To you, what was your most memorable moment?
Probably, I mean, definitely if you include the Woodley fight in that, that was the most memorable. You know, fighting for a world title, going into the fourth round, having a really good fight, and being able to finish with a knockout like that. I mean, it was a good fight, and yeah, that was exciting. But yeah, I've had a lot of moments in UFC and in fighting in general, fighting over in Japan and stuff. Yeah, a lot of memories, a lot of good stuff.
And speaking about your earlier days when you mentioned Japan, you were fighting around when the UFC and MMA was more of like in the dark ages. You were fighting in the 99, so it's like when you made your professional debut. That's a long time now, from now, and that was in the early MMA years. What kind of like got you started back then? Now a lot of days everyone sees UFC everywhere, but back in the 99s, it wasn't really that much around. Like what got you started, and especially I feel like you were a younger man at that time.
Oh yeah, I think I was 7. Well, actually, I was 16 when I first started training. My buddy, next door neighbor, actually, he brought home a VHS tape of Ultimate Fighter, or not, sorry, not Ultimate. The UFC 1, 2, and 3. So watching Renzo Gracie go in there with a kimono on, fighting guys twice his size, and I was in high school at the time. I was small. I didn't really grow until after high school. So, and I was playing basketball at the time, and kind of being overlooked because of my height and because of my stature. So, it really, it turned me on to the sport, and I loved the technique aspect that he was able to defeat bigger, stronger opponents with technique, and so I just wanted to start training it.
And who was like a fighter that you kind of grew up to like that, like really made you watch? Was it like Royce Gracie, or was there like another one that you're like, oh man, I definitely got to try to train with that guy or be like that guy?
Oh yeah, definitely. Royce Gracie was the first guy. Like I said, because of the technique, the size, the grappling. So that was the first gym. I wanted to find a gym that taught jiu-jitsu or at least some kind of ground fighting. And then, but also, I knew like I wanted to be able to do everything, and so I looked for a gym that taught stand-up as well. And then as I watched the UFC over the years, I remember watching Frank Shamrock was one of the guys, and Boss Rutan also, who were able to fight on their feet and on the ground. Another guy, Don Fry, he's a good wrestler. Wasn't like a jiu-jitsu guy, but he could fight on the ground. And he had good wrestling and good boxing. So those are the first guys that I kind of modeled my fight style after.
And then what type of team, like back in the day, like where you were originally from?
Back in the day, there wasn't really a fight. You know, I was in Denver. I would say the first fight team in Denver was probably, you know, I would guess that I started it, or I like, what it was is guys who, some guys fought like Muay Thai stand up, or some guys were karate guys, or some guys were more jiu-jitsu guys. And I kind of pulled guys together and started training with them. First, I would go to their gym and train with them, and then I pulled them all, invited them over to my gym at that time in Aurora. And so, yeah, I mean, I guess there were fight teams, but it was like more of a boxing fight team or a kickboxing fight team or a jiu-jitsu fight team, but it wasn't like mixed. And so
basically not like how it is nowadays, where you can go to an MMA gym. Back in the days, you do hear them always kind of talk about you had to go to a jiu-jitsu gym or go to a Muay Thai gym to find the training. Is that something you've noticed about the sport that's maybe like a big difference, how you can kind of just go to one spot and get all the training in?
And so, well, okay, so in 2004, I also started training at Jackson's. I'm trying to think how it happened, actually, how I met Keith and Greg. I think it was at a fight, but either way, basically I started training down there. And, oh yeah, it was out in Japan. I met Keith and Greg in Japan, and they invited me down. So I went down. They had more of like an MMA gym. And so I would go down there for a week and train, and then I would go up to Denver and do more like boxing or jiu-jitsu training, or like more technique training. And so I felt like I had the best of both worlds. So I mean, it's still kind of I would say that there's still a question of which is better, to train at an MMA gym where all the guys do jiu-jitsu and all the guys do boxing or kickboxing and all the guys do wrestling, or is it better to go to a jiu-jitsu gym and train with jiu-jitsu guys, and then go to a college and train with wrestlers, and then, you know, go to a boxing team and train with boxers? I think there's a benefit of doing both ways, to be honest. And if possible, I think you should try to do both. And if you can't do them both, then I think you'll be good either way, because the MMA gyms anymore, the guys are very well versed in each aspect of the sport. So
I definitely agree on that. I feel like it's always good to get out of your comfort zone and try different things. And then looking back at your UFC career, what is one fight that you maybe like wish you would have got but you never got?
Oh, somebody I wish I would have been able to fight?
Yeah, like an opponent.
That's hard to say. I mean, it all kind of depended on the time. You know, there was a time I really wanted to rematch Anderson Silva. I felt like didn't do my best against him, or actually I was doing really well, but you know, just one mistake. And so that was one fight, maybe probably the top one that I wanted to rematch.
And then speaking of Anderson Silva, you've also trained with a lot of people talk about the GOATs right now. They talk about like the pound for pound GOATs is like John Jones, GSP, Anderson Silva. You have trained with John Jones. I believe you've also trained with GSP, and you have fought Anderson Silva. To you, which ones out of those three would be the GOAT or the pound for pound king?
Yeah, that's a tough question. Because yeah, if you had to say who would be the GOAT, it would be one of those. That would be my three picks. You know, yeah, there's other guys that I wouldn't even compare to those guys technically. I trained a lot with GSP, and having trained with him, I feel like technically he's there. Even athletically, he's a very good athlete. And he's smart, very smart, wise as far as his training. Jones is a special guy because, you know, he's got that reach, and he's also very athletically gifted. I think GSP's worked a lot harder for the athleticism he has. Uh, um, and with Jones, it's definitely it's in his blood with his brothers playing in the NFL and all that, and technically I think George is a better wrestler and just as good a striker and probably better on the ground as well. So I'd have to go with George. I'm a little biased, like I said. He's my buddy and I trained a lot with him. But that being said, yeah, Jones is would be contending for that, and Silva, of course. Silva, I feel like he's fought a lot, maybe a lot more. I don't know his record, but he's fought a lot more than GSP, so it's hard to say.
Yeah, definitely a hard one to answer. All those guys are definitely studs. And then looking back at the UFC, when you were fighting in the UFC, you were in the UFC before Reebok was there, and you were there when Reebok was there. The Reebok deal is accordingly supposed to come to an end in the next few months with the UFC. So I kind of want to get your opinion on that. Which one did you prefer? Did you prefer the Reebok era or not the Reebok era? As a fan, I always feel like the Reebok era was a little cleaner looking, and I like the idea you guys don't have to chase your sponsors, but I like to know that you guys are getting paid at the same time. So to you as a UFC fighter that has experiences both of those, which ones did you prefer?
It's hard to say because, when Reebok came on, I lost money, not a ton, but some guys did lose a ton of money. Some of the up-and-comers, it didn't bother them one bit. In fact, then they didn't have to deal with sponsorship, so it's better for the younger guys. For the vets or the guys that are more famous, it would definitely hurt them a lot. I don't know. I mean, it's the nature of the sport. It's all about what's going to bring in the money for the promotion. That's the bottom line. So I don't know. I'm curious what's going to. I didn't know that. That's pretty cool to hear.
Yeah, I think they're going to get signed with Reebok, not Reebok, with Under Armour is what it's. I'm seeing
wow.
On the internet, but we'll see. Hopefully, it's another big company. And then, are you still a fan of the UFC? Do you still watch mixed martial arts and
yeah,
sports?
Yeah. I mean, I don't watch all of them. I can't. I mean, there's so many now, and honestly, like when I watch them, more than half the guys I don't know who they are, but. The top guys, I still have my eye on them and watching guys, or some of the up-and-comers that have impressed me, those guys. So, yeah.
And then one of your former opponents, Tyron Woodley, he's been kind of on a downslide skirt right now. He's lost his last few fights, but all of his fights, it's not like he's getting finished. He's just losing decisions. A lot of people are saying he's probably done and past his prime. I'm a huge Woodley fan. I don't think he is, and I kind of want to get your thoughts on that. Do you think just because a few setbacks could set him back, or do you think he could still come back and rise to the top?
Yeah, I mean, well, here's the thing. I'm 41, and I'm making a comeback. So I believe people put so much emphasis on the age and all this stuff. Their age doesn't affect all these things. People have a misconception of what it does, even medically or, biologically what it does. A lot of it, or not most of it, is up here and your lifestyle, and it's your belief. Like, do you believe those things? If you believe them, then you're not going to perform well. You're not going to succeed. You're going to fight for the wrong reasons. But I think, there's probably a good chance that if I thought about it for Woodley, he's had great success and he's trying to hold on to the success. He's maybe fighting a little more conservatively, and it's costing him because he's fighting hungry guys that haven't had the success that he's had. And so, they're just edging him out. And so, I think, I believe that happened to me. And so you got to have the hunger. I think, he could definitely come back, but it's going to take, it's going to take a situation to take him out of that, I would guess. It's a mental thing for him, I would guess.
And I did not know that. So you are thinking of coming out of retirement and coming back to competing?
Yes, sir.
Are you looking to do like mixed martial arts, some bare knuckle or grappling super fights, or?
MMA for sure. Yeah.
And have you started talking to like any promotions or anyone so far?
Well, I mean, I knew since 2018 that I was going to make a comeback. So pretty much like a few months after I retired. But I didn't know when, and I had school going on. And so I just stayed in shape and kept training. And I believe it's time soon anyway. So I think it was January, actually it was in December, I decided I needed to get better training than I was getting in Denver, and maybe just a whole new look. So I went to look in Thailand in Tiger Muay Thai, and I found what I was looking for there. So right now, my family and I are moving out there. We're on the way. We sold our house in Denver. We're stuck in Houston temporarily, but we're enjoying it here and getting good training. And but back kind of when all that was happening when I got back from Tiger Muay Thai, I contacted my old manager, Lex McMahon, and I told him that I was going to come back to fighting. And so he said he was going to start looking. And that's kind of right when the pandemic hit. So, in a way, it kind of put everything on hold. So, but honestly, like my situation is a little bit different too, because I believe that God is leading me back to fighting. He wants he's going to bless my career, and so I'm not actively like searching, like calling my manager, hey, have you found a fight yet? I told him once, and I just trust in God will provide the fight. He'll provide everything.
That's awesome. I love the belief in that. And like I was saying when I first saw you earlier, you look in great shape right now. You look also very young. I forget that you're 41 years old. You look so young and you're in great shape. So I definitely hope you make a comeback. I cannot wait to see you back in the cage. And then speaking of the UFC, the Ultimate Fighter, I believe the next season coming up is actually going to be a comeback season. Let's just say if the UFC maybe reached out and was like, oh, Nate, we would love to have you on the comeback season, which I don't know the weights, but I know the coaches are Israel Adesanya and the big Brazilian guy. I can't think of his name right now. But Costa, yeah, and so they'll be at 185. The UFC reached out, was like, hey, we'd love to have you on a comeback season. Would that be something you would maybe be interested in?
Oh, wow, yeah. That, but for sure, yeah, that'd be cool.
And then the UFC next weekend has a huge event coming up. It'll be UFC 251. I want to get your picks for the two title fights. In the main event, we'll see the 107-pound belt, Kamaru Usman, taking on Gilbert Burns in the main event. I want to get your pick for that fight.
I think which guy Burns is. I know I've seen him fight.
He's been on a
tear
recently. He just beat Woodley.
He beat Woodley, right? Yeah. Yeah, that's gonna be a good fight.
They're also former training partners.
Oh wow, okay, I didn't know that. Wow. Yeah, I mean, Usman, he's very solid and he's got a good mindset. I think if he goes after it, he's got a good chance, because the other guy is definitely gonna go after it. I think that's kind of his style, and. But Usman just seems very tough and methodical and very good technique, great cardio, good mental, he's very aggressive. He's not going to let off the gas. He's going to keep coming forward. And so it's going to be a good fight. That's this weekend?
Next weekend.
Next weekend. Okay. Yeah, I'll be sure to watch that.
The first UFC Fight Island.
Okay.
And then in the co-main event, we'll see the 145-pound belt. We'll see Max Holloway taking on Alexander Volkanovski. Who do you have in that fight?
Oh, wow. Okay. I don't know. I love Max. I think he's a great fighter. I can't say, but I like Max. I like watching him fight. He's a great fighter.
And then also on that card, we'll see one of your former training partners, Thug Rose will be returning to the octagon, and she'll be taking on Jessica Andrade. I just kind of want to get your thoughts on that fight, and someone you used to train with and know probably well.
Oh yeah, Rose, she's a special fighter for the female division, and if she's there mentally, if she believes in herself, she could be anybody. I mean, she's got some of the best. She hits so hard for as small as she is, and you know, a lot of that I believe is she has a great coach, Trevor Whitman. He just knows how to coach guys how to hit hard, man. So yeah, so I think she's got it. Like I said, as long as she's there mentally. Yeah.
And speaking of your coach Trevor Whitman and training with everyone over there, do you have like any like really good like behind the scenes training stories, like maybe something funny or just some like crazy sparring stories from back in the day?
Sparring story. Yeah, I'm trying to remember. Trevor sometimes is a goofball, and he'll tell you that. Not sometimes. He's always is a goofball, but sometimes he does stuff that's maybe not the smartest, like when he sparring with Shane Carwin. You know, he caught Shane, and then Shane got him back and broke his nose, or like being silly in front of the camera and stuff like that. Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of stories with Trevor. He's a funny guy. He's fun to be around in the gym for sure.
That's awesome. Well, before I let you go, I thank you again for giving me some of your time. And do you have like any special shout outs or anything you want to say?
Yeah, man. I just, you know, we're going through this time with the pandemic, and it's crazy. There's so much spiritual warfare right now, and it's becoming evident that this is more than just in the natural. Like, there's actual spiritual forces behind what's going on. And you know, fear is the enemy. Fear is not from God. Not that kind of fear. So I don't know. Just you know, I love the Lord. I love Jesus Christ, and He's the only way to be saved, and He's the only way to really have no fear. So if you're scared of, you know, the virus, then you need to trust in Jesus.
Amen to that. And everyone needs to make sure to follow Nate Marquardt on his way, hopefully back to the octagon.
Thank you. God bless.